This is a Momentum Media production.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Well, g'day, how you going? Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show. I'm doing what I like to do more than most things, and that is actually chat to property investors rather than, which has been quite a lot of property professionals coming through the podcast recently. So where we started on this podcast many, many years ago was telling stories in and around other property investors like myself. This podcast is by investors for investors. So by investors, i.e. me, for investors, i.e. you, a genuine, organic, and probably pretty unique podcast in that most property podcasts, of which there feels as though there's hundreds of them these days, are property professionals telling you about what they do. This particular podcast, Smart Property Investment Show, it's about chatting to investors, see how they're going through property investment, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, what gets them started investing in property, what they do right, what they do wrong. And the basis of peer-to-peer learning is often the best sort of learning. So how you can learn from other people's journey through property to help make more informed decisions yourself and maybe take some inspiration or motivation from what they're doing, how they're doing it, and maybe try and avoid what they've done wrong. You don't want to make someone else's mistake twice. So learn from other people. That's what we do. That's the reason why I host these conversations. And the guest I have in the studio today, dialing in from Adelaide. I remember before COVID, I was a stickler for saying people needed to come into the podcast studio because you get a better outcome. And I still believe it a little way, but we're completely universal now right across Australia and globally for our guests coming in from the Adelaide Hills, Tom Lindsay. I'm going to have a chat with him today, see what he's up to. He's a property investor. He's also a plasterer. And that was what really intrigued me when I started chatting to him, because I'm a bit of a nut when it comes to sort of trades type stuff. So, Tom, how you going, mate? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Phil.
So we'll get into property investment, but I'm intrigued by what you've chosen to do for a living, a plasterer, which I reckon is a license to print money these days. You enjoy being a tradie?
I love it, mate. Yeah. I always ask people, what they would do if they had their time again since finishing school. And to be honest, I think I'd probably, do what I've done. I remember finishing year 12 and the old man sort of said to me, oh, look, you can have a gap year, but you've got to get yourself a job. And if you don't find one, I'll get you stacking shelves at the local Foodland, which is just a grocery store. And didn't really want to go down that path. So a week later, I found an apprenticeship, and that was in solid plastering. Didn't really know much about it, but it's really worked out for the best.
So solid plastering. So tell me about the different sorts of plastering. Most people are going to think gyprock on a wall and someone with some mud putting it on there, sanding it, letting it dry, then giving it another top coat and then painting it, right? That's most people's view of plastering.
Yeah,
you probably do more sophisticated plastering than that, do you?
Yeah, I guess you could say it's more sophisticated. So essentially we go over a brick substrate with sand and cement, and essentially it's, if you can think of it as concreting, but on walls. So we apply sand and cement onto brickwork, and essentially we screed it till it's level and plumb. And then you can put decorative finishes over that, your texture coatings, hard set finish plaster, even Venetian plaster. That's starting to really hit the market as a decorative finish now.
So what's Venetian plaster? Explain to me Venetian plaster.
It's a really expensive, nice looking finish for homes. It's making its way into bathrooms, and it's essentially like a really shiny, gives a bit of texture. There's so many different finishes that you can do with it, but it's quite a broad range of what you can actually do with the product. So
this is an in-demand trade, but I imagine we're probably not making many plasterers these days coming out of our TAFEs, right?
Oh, it's very hard to find anyone at the moment. I'm lucky to have enough to have around 6 people on the books now, which is just really, it's very lucky to have that many people. But no kid wants to come out of school and do a wet trade just because it's tough. It's hard work. It is rewarding. And I think kids these days who are finishing school are lucky in the fact that there are so many opportunities for jobs out there. Employers are just screaming for help, and kids are lucky these days that work is out there for them to go do. So
it's funny, I saw some stat, and I'll probably butcher this, but I was asking kids what they want to do when they leave school or university, and like 90% of them want to be content creators.
Yeah.
Which is essentially podcasting, right? Now, let me give you a hot tip, all those people out there and tuning into this, like go and get a trade. Much
Yeah,
better. Much
honestly.
better.
We
Like,
do content creating. I just bought a drone on the weekend to start filming all of our
oh,
work.
really? You're
So
going to start doing it, mate? Well, it's a good way to market your business, but I doubt you got problems finding people to do plastering for you. Do you go into sort of quotes these days and go, look, I don't want to do this work. It's going to be hard or difficult, or you can probably put a premium on it purely because, there is a demand and there's not enough skilled people to be able to do the work. It's not a bad place to be.
that's it. If you're a young kid and you're listening to this podcast, become a solid plasterer or just get into the trade because you'll be busy forever, especially with all the building demand that's happening at the minute. You'll always be in a job.
So I imagine you're as much a business owner as what you are now a tradie, right? Like what would be the gap between being on the tools, doing the work versus quoting, managing your crew, doing your BAS, doing your tax, doing your compliance and all that sort of stuff, payroll?
Yeah, it is. It does take up a lot of time. I do like to be on site with boys to keep that quality control at its maximum, the best that it can be. But then, I'm also lucky to have my partner. She also does work full time as a oral health therapist, but she does help out a lot with the BASs, the
She does the
paperwork.
books. That's very traditional. So
Yeah,
it's someone doing with tradies, someone the partner does the books and
yeah,
the
yeah.
tradies out there doing the work. Do you sort of
Yeah.
finish every day just knackered? Like it's quite physical work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely stuffed. And then, get home and look at realestate.com and, do the quotes as I need to and, all the phone calls. But I am on site every day purely because I love it. And, I think I'm a property investor because I live and breathe like the work as well. I'm on site looking at new houses every day and I enjoy being out there with the boys as well. It's got a good feel and yeah, I don't want to be stuck behind a laptop every day. So
Yeah, God. And what is it about the work? Is it the satisfaction of a job well done, the aesthetics of it all, knowing that you've done a quality job that's going to stand the test of time but looks good?
it is so rewarding once you finish a job and it's this big 2-story thing and all decorative and real high end. We take a step back and we think, how the hell did we get here? How the hell did we manage doing that? But yeah, it is rewarding and go and have a beer at the pub with the boys at the end of a job and celebrate what it was. And
Well, you're at the right end of the trades because you get the glory job, right? Like
yeah,
there's all the other trades do the stuff you don't see,
yeah.
sparkies and builders, etc. And you're the guys that actually just go, boom, make it
Yeah,
look
that's
good.
it. I mean, I love doing a private job because, we'll do our base coat and we'll come back the next day and the client will come home and they'll be like, oh my God, like you guys have done such a good job. When do you want me to put the money through? I'm like, hang on, we still got another 2 days to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, they love it. And, the feedback's really good because they see the transformation in their house.
Yeah, I'm sort of intrigued by this, and I look at most things as sort of process, right? As property investment or business. How much of solar plaster? How much of it is preparation versus the quality of the material versus the consistency of the material you put on the walls, right? Like imagine getting up there and making it stick is probably the hard bit. Is that?
Yeah.
That sounds really quite simple, but imagine it's quite a thorough process.
I guess you could say we have some fun with the apprentices when they first come out. Yeah, there is a lot of different factors that come into it, and preparation in the work is massive. Well, I always say to the boys, the more prep you do and the more time you set aside to ensure that you don't make a mistake because, if you do a little prep at the start of the job and you get to the end of the job, you're just forever cleaning. So that is very vital in the space that you do. Make sure that you get everything prepped before you start. And yeah, I mean, there are so many different products out there. You got your Duluxes and all the big brands that are in that field at the moment. So they have their steps and processes. It depends on what the builders really specify on that build. And then there are just thousands of products out there. It depends on, what substrate you're applying that to and all the different contributing factors.
Yeah, I could probably talk to you about plastering all day, but it's a podcast around our property investment. But mate, I'm sure you're so busy, you probably don't ever have to give your business a plug. What's it called?
Lindsay Solid Plastering.
Okay. And anywhere in Adelaide you'll go.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. You heard it. If you just Google that, you'll find you guys and give you a call and
that's
do all
it.
that sort of stuff.
Instagram.
But you are a property investor, so I want to have a chat about that. Let's go to a quick break. Stay with us back in a moment.
Are you looking to invest for a big return, but are unsure which suburb is up and coming and guaranteed to give you the most bang for your buck? Smart Property Investment and Pure Property Investment have unveiled the Fast 50 report for 2025, identifying the suburbs backed by research that are giving investors the highest returns. Don't make any investing decisions until you read the free report. Visit smartpropertyinvestment.com.au to download the report.
Welcome back, Phil Tarrant from Smart Property Investment, chatting with Tom Lindsay about plastering at the moment. But do you talk to the guys on site around property investment? So give our listeners a bit of a sense. So you're a property investor. How big is your portfolio at the moment? Just to give me some sense for how to shape the chat with you.
Yep. So we've got five properties at the minute.
Okay.
And they're sitting at around 4.6 mil in the current port value.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
pretty good going. And is there a principal place of residence in there, or they're all investment properties?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And 4.6 on 5 properties. So yeah, it's a reasonable average price. I'm going to imagine not all of them are in Adelaide.
They actually are.
Okay.
And the reason being is because it's just, I'm going everywhere. I see these suburbs day in, day out. And plus, yeah, my partner and I, we reno these properties as soon as we buy them.
There we go.
Yeah. Put them on the market thereafter for rent.
So that's not a bad strategy. I know a lot of, like, being a builder has so many advantages when it comes to that type of property investing, where you can go in, you can do a lot of work yourself. There's probably no trade other than electrical and plumbing that you'll probably have a crack at yourself, or you're able to sort of manage a crew. Do you enjoy spending your weekends renovating properties when you spend all of the work week?
I did at the start.
Yeah.
It was good, but now owning a business, working, from 6 a.m. till 6 p.m, and then going to do renos on the weekend, that gets pretty old. So we're starting to utilize our equity in our buildings, and getting other trades to come in and do the work for us is, more of our go now. And we're sort of just managing those builds.
I reckon you've got a long sort of career as the investor ahead of you. You're a pretty young bloke. How old are you?
I'm 26.
Okay. Wow. And you got 26 and you're already that far down this pathway. I guess you've already had like a decade of work, right, doing your sort of day job. So you're well down a pathway of creating, I would say, quite a significant property portfolio. How did you start investing in property? What's the backstory?
Backstory is, when I was around 20, I got a trade. Well, yeah, let's go back to school days, finishing school, didn't know what I wanted to do, and got into the trade, as we know. And I loved it, didn't realise that I'd like it this much. And, did the usual thing, went out and surfed pretty much every weekend, and went and had parties with the boys and all that sort of jazz when you were young. And actually got my wisdom teeth out when I was about 20 years old. And long story short, had a health complication with the medication that I received.
Okay.
And yeah, won't get into the details, but it was...
It knocked you around a bit, did it?
Yeah, it knocked me around to the point where, I almost lost my life. But
God.
I sort of took that and looked at my life and what I've achieved at that point in time. And I didn't really have anything to my name, and I got really angry at myself. And ever since then, I was like, I've got to actually, do this thing called life, and have something that, when I finish my days, that I can look back and say, yeah, I've achieved this, and I'm happy with, where I am in my life. And so since then, I worked really hard. I was doing, overtime, working 60, 70 hours a week, trying to save up enough cash for a deposit. And then that got me to my first house in August 2020, which was in the Adelaide Hills. And this is when COVID just started. So they actually had the house up for about 600K, and they had 3 contracts fail. And luckily, my dad was in the banking world, so he helped me out trying to get finance. So we purchased this one in 2020 for $535,000, and that just set everything for me yeah, it's probably worth 950 now.
Wow. And is that the house you live in, or is that an investment
No,
property?
no,
Okay.
that's our first investment. But prior to that, I was looking at units. It was about a 2.5 year period where I was looking at houses until actually, found something. I had went to so many auctions, missed out on so many houses. They were just going for well over what I could afford. And then thank God, COVID happened for me, because that's just where I was able to enter the market.
That sounds like a really good first investment. And this is the point. You've got to get your first investment's got to be a really good one, because it will propel yourself into moving forward. This is the reason why most property investors only own one or two investment properties, because they buy the wrong one first. But that, mate, that's ambitious. Like, it's such a young age of your life to have this sort of inflection point to say, hey, I need to be aiming towards something. Like, it takes a lot of people a lot longer to sort of hit that point where they got to go, I've got to sort myself out. Maybe you've done it too young, who knows, but it's probably going to give you options in the future, seeing that you started off investing so young. What did your folks think about your ambitions as a property investor? They're going, what are you doing? Don't do that. Go out and go to Europe and spend 2 years traveling around.
I remember the doctor, after I had like all these health complications, coming into my room, and he looked at me, and then he looked at my mum, and he just started, doing the milk the cow sort of action. And he's like, have you been to Europe? I'm like, nah. And he's like, do you have a nice car? I was like, nah. And he's like, come on, mum, like, what are you doing? You gotta start helping this bloke out. But no, I took it differently. Like, I had my midlife crisis when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
And I think my mum and dad realised that. And with my dad being in the, finance world, he was very skeptical, because he has seen a lot of people fail in business, taking, heavy loans, and he was skeptical, but now he sees the value in it, and he knows that what I'm doing, like, I can create value in buildings, and it has paid off for me. So he's all on board, and yeah, they're both very happy with me. And
I imagine they're really proud of what you've been able to create, because it's super impressive. Five properties by sort of 26 is, if you think you've probably got, it depends. Tradies always complain about not having to work past 50, right? But, I was looking at the paper today, the average age retirement's going to be like 65, 66. Probably when you get to that point, it's probably be closer to 70. Whether or not you'd be working in it, I don't know. But how many market cycles you'll now get the benefit of being in as a result of starting so early. What do your mates reckon the blokes you used to knock around with when you're a new sort of tradie, who are probably still doing exactly the same stuff every Friday and Saturday night?
Yeah.
They got a sense. So are you the guy that keeps talking to them about property and they go, shut up, Tom?
No, not at all. You pick and choose who you sort of have your conversations with, I guess.
Yeah.
I keep to myself. If people ask me, I'm like more than happy to tell them. But yeah, it's a lot of people don't want to hear it as well. It sucks, but you've got those close mates who you can have these conversations with. And I'm actually helping out a few of my mates who have seen my path, and they're like, oh, can you help me out? I'm like, yeah, no worries. Like, let's do this.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, it's good. And I've had my cousin come up to me, and he's like, I just want to set up something for my kids. Can you help me do that? And I was like, gee, that's actually really nice to hear, and something special. So
are you going to be another story of tradie becomes a buyer's agent? Is that where this is going?
I don't know. I think that space is getting pretty clogged up at the minute.
Mate, stay a tradie. You'll probably make more money, but but invest in property on the side.
Yeah, I am happy, with the career I'm in. But not to say that something might happen in the future, like, I love property. I want to live it and breathe it every day, depending on what that is. I'm not sure yet, but I'm happy with where I'm at.
So how big do you say the value of the portfolio was? About 4.6 million. What's the debt position on it at the moment?
We are about 2.9 in debt.
Okay. So you got a couple of $1 million of equity in there, which is pretty good going for someone so young. Is it costing you a lot to hold the portfolio at the moment?
Well, funny you say that. We just run into, as you probably would have realised, run into a lot of mortgage brokers. And, when they say, nah, you're at your max, you move on to the next and try your luck. So up until the end of last year, we had 4 properties under P&I. that was bleeding us. And we've only gone interest only for all of our investments and kept our own OC as P&I. So that's really helped. We're still in the red. Our rent per week is $2,600 and our payments are $2,900. So a couple $100.
You can live with that. So you're self-employed. So it means that you've got to keep your books pretty well from business, so banks have appetite to lend you. Do you think you sort of turned off for a little while to borrow more, or do you think there's more in there?
I think there's more in there. We've gone down the route of trust, putting property under trusts, and then, if it needs to, we can, sort of shuffle some of these properties around. Like every property that I bought, it's got subdivision potential. The latest one I bought actually had a dwelling at the back, which was like a brick substrate, and we just set it up as another bed and bathroom with a little kitchenette. So they've all got subdivision potential. We could potentially sell one or two to free up some of the space, the servicing wise. But yeah, generally, like my broker's pretty good at the moment. I'll send him something and he'll be like yes or no. But I'm very selective with what sort of property I buy. So,
well, the easiest way to borrow more money is to make more money in your business, mate. So it's the simplest way to do it. And a lot of people who, particularly tradies, and I'm sort of generalizing here a bit, not saying how this is what you do, but a lot of self-employed tradies will try and pay as little tax as they possibly can because that's the advice their accountant will give them. And they'll go out and buy toys, if you want to call it, and I am generalizing here, the tradie. And then they sit there and go, I want to invest in property. And they go, you go to a mortgage broker and they go, you don't have enough profit in your business. And I go, oh, but it's really, really profitable. I do all this tax stuff for my accountant. And the answer is, well, yeah, the banks aren't going to lend you money on that basis. So you need to spend a good year or so showing better financials. Now, the negative of that to what some people think are negative means you're going to have to pay tax, but it's a cost of doing business.
Tax is a good thing. And, being a tradie, people try and pay cash all the time and they think I'm just crazy. I'm like, nah, that's all right. Like I'll pay tax on your invoice. Like that's fine.
I'll pay the tax, I'll pay the GST, I'll do it all properly.
Yeah, I've had those meetings with my accountant. He knows what sort of a trajectory my partner and I want to go on. And that's building a large portfolio base, so that compounding growth over the years to come.
I'm sure you've got a compounding growth calculator out and you've gone 4.6 million. What is it in 10 years? What is it in 20 years? What is it? I do it every now and then when I get frustrated or fatigued with property investment just to help orientate myself back to what the outcomes are. Yeah. But it's surprising, even if you do sort of call it conservative growth rates of 5% annualized compounding, that number gets very big very quickly.
It does. I mean, I think the goal with us is take a look at our properties now, and I'm 26 now. My partner's 24. So, I think we've got a few years left in us for, trying to grow that portfolio. And then saying another 10 years from when we let that portfolio grow out, we'll look at subdividing all the blocks and moving into,
Well, I'll ask you about the locations because I'd be interested to know the properties themselves. And Adelaide's a pretty good performer, but you're at a really favourable moment of your life in that you can be so selfish right now in terms of wealth creation. So, you don't have all the trappings of responsibility you have when, you have a growing family or more commitments around it. Yes, you have a business to run and a relationship, but you have time. And if you invest that time sensibly, and that is investing in education and making the right decisions when it comes to property, but then also deploying that capability, you have that sweat equity to do renos or at least manage renos on weekends, right? What are you missing out on really? Exactly. You might be missing out on some parties and maybe some overseas holidays and stuff. So that's a compromise on the balance sheet, but you don't have too many other things you need to worry or concern yourself with. So you can go all in right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And that time spent now will just you'll get the compounding benefit of every single hour you spend on it into the future, much like your portfolio.
That's it. We're at a low risk point of our lives and, we want to capitalize on that. So, yeah, you're exactly right.
Got to get stuck in it. So how have you learned about property, Tom? Like, imagine as a trader, you got plenty of time to listen to podcasts.
Yeah, there was a period of time there when I first started my business. And the reason why I did purchase my first house is because I did want to start my own business. And I knew that as soon as I started my own business and, stopped the full-time work, it'd be very difficult for me to get a loan. Therefore, I went and bought this first house, got it rented out. At that point in time, I think my interest rate was around like 1.9%, which is just ridiculous. So I think I was clearing like $100 a week, my mortgage repayments, which is amazing. Started my own business. And to be honest, I completely forgot about that and just left it for 8 months. And I got a phone call from my the real estate agent who sold me that property. And she's like, yeah, that property is probably worth like 150 grand more than what you actually bought it for. So it sparked something in me and, I wanted to find out more about it. Therefore, it just led me into Googling, what is property investment for dummies, essentially just starting from the bare bones because my parents hadn't invested in property. They owned their house. Dad worked hard all his life and he's retired now, but never really dabbled in any sort of property investment. So it was all new to me and started from the bare bones of, in property investment and, listening to potties every day because I was working by myself for about a year. So just smashed the potties and really educated myself.
So do you think you got lucky, your first property, or how much of it
100%.
was?
Yeah. I got so lucky and, there was no interest whatsoever of being a property investor because I didn't know what it was. And I saw the opportunity there and I went for it.
Pretty good. So let's have a chat of the other properties. We'll go to another break. Stay with us, everyone. Back in a moment.
Ready to supercharge your mornings while supporting work which improves the lives of Aussie heroes? This June, Invictus Australia is challenging everyone to rise at 6 a.m. and get active for 6 days by taking part in their 0600 challenge. Conquer your morning however you choose, a run, swim, or a group fitness class. Whatever gets you active and connected. Empower others to support your challenge and fundraise to help strengthen the lives of our Aussie heroes through sport and help Invictus Australia combat the statistic that we lose 6 veterans to suicide a month. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.0600.com.au to sign up today and join the 0600 community.
Welcome back, Phil Tarrant from Smart Property Investment, having a chat with Tom Lindsay in South Australia. He's got a portfolio of 5 properties. One is a Prince Place residence, so 4 investment properties. So you bought your first property in Adelaide Hills, now worth about 900 grand, you reckon?
Yeah.
Okay, pretty good. What happened after that? What was the next property?
So it was about a 2-year period, and that was just because I solely couldn't really get any money from the banks because I had my own business. And I was reaching out to people and asking them, telling them about my scenario, and they're just like, oh, look, wait for your tight 2-year financials. And so I was pretty bummed on that, but just kept on working as hard as I could, trying to save up as much for a deposit as I possibly could. And learning all things about business as well. And business did really well, started hiring people, and that really took off as well. But I was just stuck because I couldn't actually purchase anything. By this time, my partner, she'd been working for a few years and she saved up a bit of a deposit, and, the business was doing pretty well there as well. So we started looking again, and I was trying to tell her that we probably shouldn't buy in the hills again, but you got to sort of diverse your portfolio. And she was set on buying something in the hills because it was close to mum and dad and, all of that. So we were looking for ages, but it was in the prime of COVID times where the market had just completely just gone nuts here in Adelaide. And we went to a lot of opens and things were just selling for 200 grand more than what they were advertised for. So it was really hard, and you don't want to overpay, obviously. And I remember there was one house that we saw, and it was a bit of a, no good, bit of a dunner. And there was an auction for it. My partner's mum went to it and it sold under the hammer for $555,000. It was in a great spot. over 2,000 square meters in land, 3-bed, 1 bath. And her and I just completed a reno on it. We spent probably 35 grand, but we completely transformed the property. And that one's renting for 610. So that was our next purchase. And that's current value is around 850,000.
Okay. And so that's not bad going. And so you've done a good reno on it. It's renting well now, and you'll just hold on to that. Is that the idea?
Yeah. And, a lot of the block sizes there are around 810 meters square. And this is over 2,000. So
That's a big block. Is it flat, the block?
It's flat.
Okay. So can you subdivide? That's something you can subdivide in the future?
Yeah. Yes, you can. It's on the main drag there as well. So whether you'd be able to put a few commercial properties on it one day, I'm not too sure.
So it sort of could be a quasi-commercial / resi thing. What zoning is it? Is residential zoned?
It's resi, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't really looked into it too much, to be honest. But yeah, looking what it's around and what's next to it, yeah, it does have a lot of upside potential. It's just about probably making it work in the future.
Oh, look, just hold on to that for 30 years and worry about it then, right? It could be like, things will change quite a lot. So what was the next property after that one?
So after that, I had hit my 2 years. And so, after 2 years of education and really trying to nut down the market and find like the suburbs in Adelaide that have potential and block sizes and subdivision potential in the areas and what I could afford as well, came across a property south of Adelaide, which was about 25 minutes to the CBD. It's not like Sydney or anything like that. Adelaide, everything's pretty close. It's all about a 20-minute drive wherever you need to go. So there are a lot of pockets. I mean, they're hard to come by now, but this one was purchased in December 2022.
Okay.
And we purchased that for 585, and I think we spent about 30 grand on the reno. That's a 4-bed, 2-bath, 850 square meter block. That one's actually got a hammerhead potential. So leave the house at the front of the property and then put a house at the back. So that one covers itself. It rents about 650 a week. So
okay,
that's worth 750 at the minute. That suburb's just taking off.
Which suburb was it? You're being cagey.
That's Happy Valley. That's just gone. That suburb. That was a really good buy. And I remember calling the agent a year after I bought that, and he's like, "Yeah, gee, you paid well there. Like that's really good. That's worth a lot more than what you paid for it." So yeah, we did well on that one.
That's cool. And so there's another investment property then, or is it a principal place residence thing?
Now it's the owner occ.
Okay.
And at this point in time, this property came up. We were looking for a house that we wanted to live in, and while we were living in it, do it up and then probably sell it. But this one came up, and I remember texting the agent, and it was way over our price. Like we loved it. It's on 16 acres. So right next to the gather round that we had in Mount Bark here, actually, about 2 minutes away. So 2-story, 4-bed, 2-bath, and it was on the market for 1.3, but that was just way out of our price. And remember talking to the agent, she's like, "Oh, it's actually under offer at the minute, but if anything falls through, like I'll get in touch." And I said, "No worries." 2 weeks later, she calls us. The contract had failed. We walked through it, fell in love, and gave her my best price. And she came back to me and she's like, "Oh, if you put in an extra 200 grand, like it'll be yours." And I said, "Yeah, no, look, like that's my best and final price. Like I'm not mucking around here. Like that's all I can do." And we bought that for 950 grand.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's good buying.
It was a really good buy. So
and what, 16 acres? Is it sort of wood or cleared or?
No, it's all grazing land, so you can put cows on there. We don't have anything on it at the minute, but this is a property that has the most upside potential out of them all. It's really close to the town. It's on the border of primary production and residential land. It probably will get developed at one point.
So it's a subdivision at some point into, that's a lot of houses on 16 acres.
Yeah, whether that's 10 years, 30 years, you don't know. It also has a dairy down the property, of which we're turning into an Airbnb, and
cool.
Airbnbs in the hills just go ballistic. So we're getting that through council at the minute.
So what do you got to do to get that through council? You just got to make an approved dwelling or something or other?
Yeah, you got to approve the dwelling. You have to pretty much satisfy the council that why we intend to have an Airbnb and what it does for the area, essentially. Because it's a primary production land, you've got to sell it as, accommodation to really give the hills experience. So we've got a few cows coming that we'll have on the land, and that's a selling point. And structurally, you have to make sure it's sound, and there's a lot of regulations because of fires, water for the dairy, and also waste from your toilet, shower, and all of that has to be the code. So it has been quite painful getting it over the line, but once it goes through, you could potentially rent the dairy up for $350 per night.
That's cool.
Which would definitely cover our repayments per week. So, yeah.
That sounds like a good buy, that one.
Yeah, it was very good. It's probably been the best one yet. So,
And do you like living out in the sort of country?
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Get home from work and put the feet up, and, you're away from all the hustle bustle, and it's great to relax. And I love the country as well.
The good thing is it's not too far from the city, right? Because it's
that's it.
How long would it take you to get into town from there?
To the bottom of the freeway, it probably takes me around 20 minutes, so it's not too bad. Yeah, I'm leaving around before 6 every morning as well, so miss all the
traffic. That's cool. Yeah. So then there's another investment property after that one, is there?
Yes, our last one, which we actually settled on at the start of this year. That was really difficult to get finance for, and we had to move a few things around to make it work. This one was another one down south, close to the beach, and we purchased that for $545,000.
Is that down the Onkaparinga sort of way, is it?
Yeah, so it's actually O'Sullivan's Beach.
Okay.
And next to Hallett Cove, which is, gone ballistic, and close to Port Noarlunga, Christie's Beach, and that sort of area.
Nice part of the world.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The beaches are awesome. Yeah, I can see the potential in that area for sure. So purchased that, and that's dwelling that actually had that brick substrate out the back, which we converted into another bedroom and bathroom. So that's gone from a 3-in-1 to a 4-in-2. And we're expecting about $700 a week, and renos are finished this week. So, keen to get that one rented out.
Mate, it sounds like you got it all worked out.
Don't know about that.
Yes, well, you're pushing pretty well. You're hustling hard, right? You got all these little things moving in unison. Do you ever sit down and stop, or you're always up to something?
I'm always up to something. My mind is always ticking, and my favourite thing to do is when someone says I can't do something, I'll always try and find a way. So there's so many tips and tricks out there that people don't know where to look. Honestly, it's just a time thing. The more you research and the more you dig for clues to give you another door to open, and there's just so many opportunities out there, and there can be a lot of money to be made out there, and trying to capitalize on that.
That's good, mate. You've started at the right age, and you certainly have time on your side. Super impressive. You'll have to stay in touch. Do you reckon you're tapped out for a little while now, or you're already working on what's next?
I want another project. O'Sullivan's is finishing. I think our dairy will be next, but that's something that I want to do myself. Like, I don't want anyone else to come in other than your plumbers and your sparkies, obviously.
Yeah. Did you got to put a septic into that, or are you going to get some sort of composting thing?
We'll have to put a septic. Yeah, which will be costly, but that's okay. So I think, like, I'll get this one rented out, the latest one, and reassess, see where we're at. There's still a lot of potential, and I think the rates decreasing. I think we're still a while away from that.
Yeah,
I think I want to probably get a couple more before those rates start to drop. Because I do think, that we'll have some upside once they start dropping.
And you're just pumping sort of business profits into the portfolio. Is that the idea?
Yes and no. I think like the biggest thing for me is looking after the boys who will work with us. So I'm looking at getting vehicles for the lads and keeping them happy with that. So
That's cool.
Expenses do go back into the business, but I think the biggest thing which drives the portfolio would be the turnover.
Yeah.
And improving on that every year so it stretches the serviceability.
And do you pay yourself a salary or do you take dividends out of it?
It changes every year.
Yeah.
It changes
Did you set up a PTY Ltd or is it a sole trader type thing?
PTY.
PTY Ltd. Yeah, okay. Setting up trusts to hold properties in all of them, except for the principal as a residence, I imagine. And the first one.
Yeah, we're starting to figure that out at the moment. And O'Sullivan's is the only one to be under the trust structure.
Okay.
Yeah, we are pretty tapped out on the servicing side of things. So that's why I said probably, we might look at selling off one or two where they've probably maxed out.
Done their thing. Yeah. Well, mate, you got to stay in touch. Let me know what's going on. It's really cool.
Yeah, will. Thank you for the chat.
It's a shame you're not up this way. I used a good plasterer, but you probably don't come up to Sydney, so it's enough to do in Adelaide. But mate, well done. It's super impressive, and you're certainly focused and ambitious. So it's a mindset that is a really good way to sort of craft a really good property investment journey. So mate, well done.
Thank you very much, Phil.
That's good, and keep listening to the podcast. Good for you.
I will. I'll never stop.
That's Tom. Is there anything like you'd like for us to cover that we don't? What do you think I'm missing?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Like, I think there's a lot of value in finding properties which you can generate like a lot of growth, because there's a lot of properties at the moment that I see that all it takes is to tweak a few things and then you can subdivide that property and add granny flats. But that's something that you can't really teach. Yeah. You've got to get really creative with it. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here, but
how to manufacture
that sort of stuff. But it's not always straightforward.
All right, nice one. That's Tom Lindsay from Adelaide on a pathway creating what will be a significant portfolio. I hope you enjoyed that, everyone. Any questions, you get in touch with the team, editor at smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Social media, you can find us, Smart Property HQ. If you like what we're doing here, I don't ask a lot for them, but please, those reviews, whichever podcast player you're tuning into, really cool. The team get a real kick out of it, knowing that we're doing good stuff. Tom's going to do one for me right away.
Absolutely.
As soon as we've done this. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Feeling trapped by rising interest payments? Escape from mortgage prison with expert refinancing assistance from Finny. We have helped hundreds of borrowers break free from higher loan repayments by finding a more suitable loan. Our expert team can quickly assess your situation, and if there's a better lender available, we'll find it fast. Don't delay. Call today. Speak to a Finny mortgage specialist on 02 8866 2444 or visit our website at www.finny.com.au.